Welcome back to another episode of the DFS show for Wednesday, January 27th. Last night was a terrific night for me, assuming it was probably a pretty good night for you guys as well. A lot of our top plays hit big. Winnipeg 2 was our top value play of the night. They went absolutely bonkers. Andrew Copp had like 4 points, which was nuts. I think he had 42 DraftKings points. Pittsburgh 2 was another one of our really good value plays last night. Kapanen scored. Zucker scored. Malkin had 2 breakaways, including a 3-on-0 in overtime and couldn't score. Kind of held them from really going off again last night. Obviously, Colorado won. A lot of good spots last night. We hit big, which is great. There's a couple spots that could have hit a little bigger to make it a bigger night. But all in all, terrific night. I hope you guys had a lot of success as well. A lot of returning viewers I see, so that's good. I'm assuming that means that you guys had a pretty solid night last night as well. All right, before we get into tonight's slate, Tanner has a question. He says, in the optimizer, what does DVP mean? DVP is defense versus position. So the higher the number, the better for that. So obviously it's basically like, I think tonight, if you look at the Senators DVP, the Canucks DVP at center and winger is 31, which basically means that the Senators are giving up the most fantasy points to those positions in the NHL right now. So DVP, the higher the better. It just means it's basically just a matchup factor, saying that the Senators, with Vancouver players being at 31, that just means the Senators are terrible defensively at defending those positions. So defense versus position is what DVP stands for. All right. So as we always do, ask your questions in the chat. I'll get to as many of them as I can throughout the show. Just a 2-game slate today. So pretty simple stuff. I am going to try, since it's a smaller slate, and I'm usually here for about 45 minutes. I am going to try to show you guys a couple little tricks in terms of like process and how to build lineups, how to find some of those value guys. So let's get into the games here. 2 games that we've seen in recent days. Obviously, a back-to-back for Nashville and Chicago. So Kevin Lankinen goes for the Blackhawks. UC Saros expected to start for the Predators after Pekka Rinne went last night. And then it's a little bit more of a toss-up in the Vancouver-Ottawa game. I'm expecting, obviously, to see Braden Holtby. Dr. Demko started last game. Matt Murray said he wants to get back in the crease tonight after getting lit up the other night. Remains to be seen if he actually will get the start. Either way, not a great spot for either one of the Senators' goaltenders. The Canucks just have been terrible, or were terrible so far this year for the most part. And Ottawa really ran into a buzzsaw the other night. And I think that Vancouver will definitely be looking to build on that. Late slate was yucky. Max's hat trick, but I killed the turbo slate. Won over 3 times. Good for you, Michael. Yeah, Max's just came out of nowhere. Vegas was getting shut down pretty good, and then he popped off out of nowhere. But yeah, that Winnipeg play was just ridiculous. They were so good. Hopefully we can find another one of those tonight. So obviously we were on Nashville last night. Nashville 2, they had a pretty decent night. Goal and an assist for Granlund. Yossi scored the overtime winner. They're definitely going to be in play again for me tonight. I think it's basically, for me, it's going to be kind of plug and play UC Saros tonight. I really expect Nashville to win that game again. I have no interest in Lankinen at 7,300. I think I don't know. I don't think I'm going to play Matt Murray at 7,000. He just doesn't look very good right now. And Braden Holtby at 8,300. I think that game is going to be a little bit more high scoring. So on just a 2-game slate, I might just go all in on UC Saros. He'll obviously be, I would imagine, the most popular goaltender on the slate. So I'll probably just plug and play him almost 100%. Just hope that, either he posts a shutout or they just, destroy them and he can pick up like 25, 30 saves. But we'll talk a little bit more about goaltenders in a little bit. Let's go back to the big board. So on top tonight is Vancouver 1. If you can see there, Vancouver 1 I have listed as Bo Horvat's line, Tanner Pearson, Niels Hoglander on his wings. They've been by far the best Vancouver line so far this season. Vancouver 2 does come in as the 4th best line, though, as well. JT Miller, 5,900, Elias Pettersson, 6,200, and Brock Besser, 5,800, sorry. They are the most expensive line on the entire slate still, but just under 18,000 to full stack an Elias Pettersson line is appealing. He just has not been very good this year. JT Miller's frustrations really came through in the Ottawa game. Pettersson just hasn't looked right, but 6,200 for Pettersson is a really good price. It is a little similar to last night. They're going to get right eventually. It was similar to Malkin last night. 5,200 for Malkin was just too cheap. He actually didn't really go off, but he had a pretty good game. His line mates had terrific games. So I think this is a spot where I'm definitely going to have some Vancouver too. And I'm almost certain that they'll be pretty popular as well. So people are obviously going to play them. But this is a good spot for them, just considering their price. And, said at the top of the show, the Senators really not that good defensively. Michael says, by the way, thanks for the Yossi call last night. You're welcome. Yossi is always a good play. I mean, Roman Yossi is outstanding. But when you were playing Nashville 2 last night, they were so cheap. You were definitely able to get Yossi in with him. And it paid off for sure. So let's take a look at this Vancouver game first, since they come out as our first and fourth best stacks of the night. Ottawa 1 comes in at number 2. So a lot to like about this game on just a small slate. Vancouver 1 is expected to see 40% of their ice time against Ottawa 1. So they're going to be going up against each other quite a bit. As for the Pettersson line, expected to see more of a mix of the bottom 9. So if we look at that, just ridiculous numbers for the Horvat line so far. 34 scoring chances, 4 per 60. The Corsi 4 at 81 just means that they're throwing absolutely everything at the net, which is what you'd love to see. They are going to be going up 40%, like I said, against Ottawa 1, who is currently the best defensive line for the Senators. So that's why I like Vancouver 2 quite a bit tonight, just because they are going to see more of a mix of that bottom 6. Chris Tierney's his line's fairly solid defensively, as you can see here. 27 scoring chances against per 60. Really not giving up a whole lot of volume, but they are going to see still quite a bit of the third and fourth line as well. So that, to me, Pettersson remains firmly in play tonight, especially in a 2-game slate. If he goes off, you're going to need him in your lineup. Pettersson, Miller, still the focal points along with Quinn Hughes in that top power play unit. So if they're getting power plays with any frequency tonight, you're going to want to have them in your lineup. I think that this is definitely an opportunity on a 2-game slate where you're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to get different to try and win a GPP. So this is probably an opportunity where you're going to want to, if you're building multiple lineups, have a Josh stack in there, whether it's Vancouver, whether it's Ottawa, whether it's Nashville. I think that this is definitely a spot where if you're making multiple lineups, you're definitely going to want to do some Josh stacks, which is basically 6 players from one team, 7 players from one team, really load up on one team and just hope that they just run that team out of the building, similar to what, like, if you did it with Colorado last night. Like, obviously on a 13-game slate, it's not going to quite pay off as much, but everybody was involved in the offense in Colorado last night. And if Vancouver goes out and wins this game 7-2, having 6 Vancouver Canucks on your roster might be a way to win a GPP tonight. Even if you're only building one lineup, I don't hate the idea. It's really, it's risky. You're going to be sitting there in the black for the first half of the night, but once that game starts, they should go crazy. So Vancouver's top power play unit right now: Brock Besser, Horvat, Miller, Quinn Hughes, and Pettersson. All the usual suspects. Definitely, even if you don't want to go full with 6 players, I think, getting that full power play in there is definitely a good play tonight. Ottawa just not that great a defensive team. Meanwhile, I really like, I've been tweeting about them quite a bit. I really like the Kachuk, Norris, Batherson line. They've been generating a ton of offense so far this season. Right here, 40 scoring chances per 60, 23 high danger chances. They've been getting to the dirty areas of the ice. They've been generating chances at a ridiculous clip. So I really like them again tonight. I think that this is probably a night where I'm going to try to play a lot of Saros and get a lot of the Ottawa, Vancouver stacks in. A lot of game stacking there in that game, because it should just be a much higher event game, a much high scoring game. So I really like Ottawa 1 tonight. I think, though, on a small slate, you're going to have to, especially if you're building lots of lineups, you're going to have to, diversify a little bit, get some of these other lines in there. I would like to see Tim Stützle play a little bit more. He is coming back from an injury, so maybe they eased him back in the other night. But Chris Tierney and Connor Brown do play a ton. They use him in a shutdown role fairly often. So Stützle being on that line does make it a little bit interesting for me, because their usage is so great that, he's talented enough where if he's on the ice a lot, he can definitely make some magic happen. He is just 3,700. Tierney 3,500, Connor Brown 4,200. So they're extremely cheap. One of the cheapest lines on the slate. So I'll definitely have some Ottawa too. Mix that in there. It's just going to be one of those nights where you're just going to want to mix and match a lot of lines if you're building multiple lineups, and just kind of have more ownership on the better lines like the Vancouver one, like the Ottawa one, but definitely sprinkle in some Ottawa 2 as well. So a combo of the Van, PP1 and 2 is in play. Yeah, absolutely. Especially getting Quinn Hughes in the mix. Quinn Hughes has been red hot lately. So getting him in there as well is great. I definitely like that power play stack as well. And Nashville still remains cheap enough where you can get kind of pieces of Nashville as well to kind of round out that lineup. I'm just trying to pull something up here to pull up. I want to see Quinn Hughes' most recent numbers. So he's got 1 goal, 6 assists on the season. He's been terrific from a DraftKings perspective as well, getting lots of shots on net. Not a guy that's going to block a lot of shots, obviously, but he is a guy that's going to shoot a lot. And on that power play, that's what you want, especially on a short slate. Can you play Van 1 and Ott 1 together, even if they will be in the AC? Yes, absolutely. Because if you look here, if you look here, so the Corsi 4 is basically just how many shots they generate on net or towards the net each game. And both lines generate a lot. Obviously, that means that they're not giving up a lot because they've got the puck a ton, but that means that it could turn into a pretty high event matchup. The amount of shots that both these lines take could make it, be extremely high event when they're on the ice. The other thing is that they're both going to be playing a ton of minutes. So with all those minutes, with all that volume, it's definitely a spot where you can play them together. And just remember, like, they're only going to be playing. So it's 40% of Horvat's minutes against Tkachuk and 37% of Tkachuk's minutes against them. So there are going to be, it's almost 60 minutes or 50 minutes the other way that they're not going to be playing against each other. So you don't have to, obviously you're going to be seeing more from them, but there's still a lot of chances to be had against these lesser lines. And this score factor here takes all of that into account. So it takes the account of how, 40% of his ice time is going to be coming against Tkachuk, but all the rest of the ice time is going to be against the other guy. So that's how it's all built into it. So that's why Vancouver 1 and Ottawa 1 still come out on top, even though they are going to be playing against each other, and they're both pretty good lines. So yeah, you can absolutely play them together. No question about it. Okay, so what I wanted to show you too is a little bit of how I try to find cheap defensemen and stuff as well, a little bit more of the process. And Natural Stat Trick is just a tremendous resource. If you're not using it, you need to be. So what you can do here is you can go into their most recent game. So this is the other night's game, Nashville versus Chicago, and pull up basically everything about that game. So what I like to do, so let's say you wanted to stack, well, let's go to the Vancouver game, actually, since we're talking about it. So let's say you wanted to stack the Bo Horvat line. You can sort how many minutes he played with each player under line mates, and this helps you try to identify players. So say you can't fit Quinn Hughes into that stack. Obviously, Quinn Hughes, they correlate at even strength, and he's the number 1 defenseman that they play with as well. So that he's obviously going to be the number 1 option, the number 1 guy you're going to want to stack with Vancouver 1 tonight. But if you can't, you can see here they do play a fair amount with Jordy Ben, Alex Edler, Nate Schmidt. So these are the guys, these top guys are going to be the ones that you're going to want to play with them if you're looking to punt a D-man. So if you're playing Van 2 and you want to punt a D-man, Jordy Ben looks like the best option there. So this is a way just to kind of, the more information you can get, the better. Obviously, if you're just listening to the show, I factor this in with the guys I'm talking about. If you want to look on the other side here, Brady Tkachuk, Eric Goodbranson looks like a good guy to pair if you want to punt, but Thomas Chabot would be the number 1 option, obviously, but he's extremely expensive. So just trying to find guys that are on the ice with them a lot, because if they're going to score a goal, if the puck's coming up from the blue line, you are going to probably pick up an assist, and that is going to increase your upside. It's not just all about kind of finding the cheap defenseman on that team. You want to make sure that they're on the ice together as well. And if you can't fit the super expensive power play defenseman, then this is a good way to try to find guys that correlate at much cheaper prices. So I hope that was helpful. Let's go up now to the Nashville game. If we look at last night's game, this is another really interesting thing about this year. It makes things a little bit easier, is you can go in and just really look at who dominated that game. It may not be that they may not have went off, but they still had a terrific game. And as you can see here, we really like Nashville 2 last night. They had 70% of the Corsi 4 last night, just a terrific performance by them. Their expected goals for was a little bit lower, which means that they weren't generating as many high danger chances or as many, scoring chances as Nashville won. So that's a little bit alarming that they're not generating as much. But as you can see, they controlled the puck quite a bit last night. So that's really good sign coming into tonight. Granlund did still have a good night. So you're going to want to get some Nashville 2 in your lineup. But it looks like Nashville 1 also a really strong option as well. Highest expected goals for at 5v5 last night. Really had a good night as well. So this is another way, especially given the way the schedule is structured this year. This is another way to kind of look at things, especially with all these back-to-backs we're going to be having and finding value, because there might be a spot where a line is absolutely dominated the night and didn't pay off, and people are going to fade them the next night. But if you go in and find these numbers and find out they had a terrific game, the chances are that they're going to go off the second night. So good way to look at things. I think that this is a really good sign for Nashville 1 tonight. Who comes out as my third best stack of the night? I'm always been a big Nashville 1 fan. The only thing that concerns me always is Ryan Johansson. Shot volume's not usually very good. But on a small slate, you're probably going to still want to full stack them because if they do get a full line goal, that may be the difference between cashing and not cashing tonight. But yeah, Ryan Johansson, just 3 shots in his last 3 games, which is rough. He did have a nice start to the season in terms of shot volume. So if you are going to leave somebody off that stack to maybe you want to play Roman Josi and you need to go down to a cheaper center, then yeah, Ryan Johansson would be the guy to leave off that stack. But again, on such a small slate, you only need a couple goals to go your way. A couple full line goals is really going to be the difference tonight. So if you're playing GPPs, Ryan Johansson is going to be somebody you're going to want a full stack there. Obviously, there's not a whole lot to talk about because it is such a small slate. But as you can see here, Chicago 2, Chicago 3, Chicago 1, all towards the bottom of the list tonight. Let's talk about Chicago 1, the Patrick Kane line first. Basically a mix of the top 6 and the 4th line for them. If we talk about, Nashville's bottom 9 has just been outstanding defensively, which is really why none of the Chicago lines pop for me tonight. We talked about it yesterday. Patrick Kane, the Pius Suter line, really not generating as much as you would imagine, given, Kane's had a pretty good start to the season. Suter had a hat trick, but they're really not generating a whole lot. But again, on a super small slate, if you're not playing UC Saros, even if you are, I wouldn't fault you for one-offing Patrick Kane. He is expensive, but he is still one of the best players in the game. He might be the best player available on the slate tonight, at least at forward. The second line looks to be a little bit better if you are going to play a little bit of Chicago. They're expected to see a mix of the top 9. Nashville, playing against the Johansson line is probably your best way of generating offense. It's going to be a high event matchup. So that's going to be a spot for Chicago too. Most of their ice time is going to come against that Johansson line. So as you can see, fairly high event. It's definitely the highest event matchup in this game. So if you are going to play some Chicago, if you're building multiple lineups, you want to sprinkle in some Chicago, I think Chicago 2 is the way to do that. I specifically like Kubalik and Dylan Strome. But I don't know. I think that is going to be a lot of, I'm going to have a lot of Saros tonight, so I don't think I'm going to get too much Chicago 2 in the mix, but they are super cheap. They are in a pretty decent matchup in terms of volume. Kurashev just doesn't shoot enough. I might full stack them just because of how small it is, and hope that he gets lucky, but he doesn't shoot enough. So if you are just going to go with like kind of a Strome Kubalik mini, it worked last night. We went with the power plays actually weren't the same as what I thought they were going to be, but going with Gostisbehere and the James Van Riemsdyk mini stack last night was amazing. I basically rounded out every single one of my lineups where I could fit them with Gostisbehere and James Van Riemsdyk last night. I think Gostisbehere was 1 shot block away from the bonus. JVR went for like 35 DraftKings points. So, the Strome Kubalik mini, maybe you throw in Duncan Keith as well. Not the worst idea tonight and hope that, maybe you get lucky. They are going to be super low owned. A lot of people are going to play Saros tonight. So that might be a way to kind of fade the chalk a little bit. Strome and Kubalik look pretty solid. Again, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to let me know, and I will get to all of them. I imagine, not a lot of people interested tonight just because it's such a small slate. I wanted to try and get prepared for tomorrow so we can break down tomorrow's slate a little bit. I was unsuccessful in that attempt. I just want to see how many games start tomorrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13. Just a 14 game slate. I'm sure one of them is postponed due to COVID, but massive. Oh, cool. That'll be fun. Another good one today. Yeah, 14 games. That's great. That'll be good. But yeah, so if we're gonna talk about goalies, I don't know. I'm not enamored with all of that, like any of them. Like last night, we hit on Cal Peterson at 6,900. He looked like he was in a great spot for his price, but Matt Murray at 7,000 is just not gonna do that for me. Yeah, no big deal on a 14 game slate. Yeah, it's gonna be like it's so fun for DFS purposes, but for me, it's like just an absolute nightmare. Like it's so much work, but it's still fun. It's like after all that work, at the end of the day, you get to just enjoy a 14 game DraftKings slate. It's the best thing ever. Connor Murphy has been absolutely on fire. Yeah, he's been ridiculous. And his price is just at the point where it's like, I'm never playing him. On a slate where the pricing is soft, I think that he is still a good play if you can afford him. He plays so much. Like he played 27 minutes in Nashville last night. He blocks a shitload of shots. He is not afraid to shoot the puck. He is getting to the point where he's a little bit too expensive. But if you are going, if you have the room, he's a decent one-off play for sure. Like if you're going to stack the other game and you have enough salary to one-off a defenseman and play Connor Murphy, I think that he is still great just because he's super reliable. His floor is great because he blocks so many shots. So he's definitely in play if you have the salary. I still, if you're gonna mini that Kubalik line, I still prefer Duncan Keith just for the power play correlation. Let's see how much ice time they play with Connor Murphy, just in case you guys want to go there. So yeah, a lot more with Duncan Keith. They got caved last night. Oh my god. So I would still probably play Keith with those guys, but neither, not great plays regardless. Oh my god, they got destroyed last night. So yeah, they probably won't have very high ownership tonight because they got just absolutely demolished. This fourth line has been so good, but like obviously they're never going to score any goals. But I can't believe how good Brandon Hagel, David Kampf, and Ryan Carpenter just continue to be. I thought they only looked good because they played Detroit. Detroit's terrible, but that was not the case. Sutter won me the $33 showdown last game. Should I go back to the well? As somebody who wants to continue to have viewers of the show and continue to be employed, I don't think I can ever confidently suggest that you should play Brandon Sutter. He scored 3 goals on 4 shots, but the usage is definitely there with Sutter. You're gonna see some block shots because he's on the penalty kill. You're gonna see it. You're gonna see him on the ice a ton. At 3,100, he's a decent one-off. He's a decent way to round out your your lineup, but no power play exposure. I don't think he's gonna. He's definitely not going to repeat. They talked about it during the broadcast. It's his first career hat trick. It's just not a guy that you'd expect to do that with any regularity. So. At 3,100, if you want to play him, it's fine. He could definitely pay off that salary, even just with a few shots on a block. But I'm probably not gonna have him. There's some other guys I like a lot more, probably around that price. I think I'd rather have Stützle at 3,700, Tanner Pearson at 3,600, Hoglander 3,900, all around that price, and I would much rather play those guys. Granlund 3,400 for sure. So I probably won't go back to the well there, but it's still 3,100. It's still cheap for a guy who just scored a hat trick. He will definitely see ownership tonight, without a doubt. Let's talk about centers a little bit. I have been a fan of this power play stack throughout the season. I will definitely have some exposure tonight. I think Thomas Chabot is a terrific young defenseman. I was tweeting about it the other night. This top line is so exciting to me. I absolutely love the Tkachuk, Bathurst, and Norris. They are going to be high owned because there's not a lot of options tonight. They aren't overly expensive. They are getting up there, but If you are going to play them, you're playing multiple lineups. I definitely like throwing in Evgeny Dadonov. I definitely like throwing in Thomas Chabot, just a way to get different from some of the other chalkier lineups. Like a lot of lineups, you're just going to go with the straight up full stacks with, the punty defenseman and UC Saros. So to make your lineups a little different, throw Dadonov in. He's still extremely cheap. Off to a really slow start in Ottawa, but he's still a really effective player. He had a filthy tip in the last game that almost went top cheese, which would have been, incredible. But the goals will come. He's still playing quite a bit of ice time, 18 minutes last game. So at his price, I would definitely fit him in. I don't know. It's just such a small slate. There's not a lot to really talk about, not a lot to break down. I don't think I'm going to play, like I said, too much Matt Murray. I'm going to play a ton of Saros tonight. I don't see a world where the Nashville loses that game. There's a much better team, especially I might be different if DeBrincat was in the lineup, but he's just not. So, and Chabot down to $5,700 tonight. So I really like him. I just really like that game as a whole. Everyone stop what you're doing and hit the like button. Yes, please. Obviously, I'd like to take a deeper dive and really go into things with you guys, but there's not a whole lot to talk about on a 2-game slate. There's only so much I can break down. So I'll probably cut this one a little bit shorter than normal, but if you guys have some questions here, I'll stick around for 5 minutes and answer any lineup questions. If you guys are building lineups right now and you're torn between 2 players, I'll definitely take those questions. But yes, please hit that like button. It helps a lot. And make sure if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we got a massive 14 gamer to break down. So that'll be fun. If this is the first time you tuned in, we're going to break down a 14 gamer tomorrow. So subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so that you're ready for when we go live tomorrow. Any fourth liners worth playing? I mean, probably not. There's not a lot of there's not even the good players aren't that expensive tonight, so you're probably not gonna have to get there. I mean, Colin White maybe has something to prove tonight. He's a third liner, but he might have something to prove tonight. He's super cheap. So Nick Paul's been playing extremely well. I don't love Nick Paul that he's up to 4,500, but $2,600 Colin White is fine. If you're not gonna have to jam too many of these cheap guys in. But Colin White, 2,600. I think he's definitely got something to prove. He's a pretty good player. He is gonna have Dadonov on his line, so that could be a line that makes some noise tonight. So I think he would probably be like the top option if you really want to go that low. Derek Stepan really hasn't been doing anything noteworthy. He is still 4,400. So I'm not gonna play $4,400 Derek Stepan on the fourth line. Sutter, obviously, if you want to go there, but not something I'm going to do. I have no interest in the bottom 6 of Chicago. And then Brad Richardson is strictly in a shutdown role. So no interest in Nashville's fourth line either. Sorry for the crazy questions. I play pretty contrarian. Yeah, no problem at all, man. That helps. Top FanDuel stack. Okay, so I don't play FanDuel. I wonder if it'll let me pull up the prices even though I don't have an account. Is that allowed? Anybody know? I don't play FanDuel, but obviously top stacks on here or top stacks over there. It's just the pricing on the site isn't going to match up. But Vancouver 1, definitely my top stack of the night. Bo Horvat looks like a man possessed right now. Surprisingly enough, Tanner Pearson and Hoglander's prices are still really low. A lot of prices inflated. Sorry, I'm yawning a ton today. A lot of prices inflated because of this small 2-game slate, but Pearson and Hoglander still super cheap. So clearly the top stack of the night, in my opinion. So is it better to just play a single lineup or play multiple lineups? I usually only do one. So it all depends. If you're only doing one, I just recommend, make sure you're playing single entry contests. Make sure you're on the same playing field as everybody else. I know a lot of people get, they go on in DraftKings and they look and they see, oh man, this contest, $20,000 to first. Chances are with one lineup, you're not going to win that $20,000. So if you're going to do one lineup, that's totally fine. I play a lot of one lineup stuff. I do a lot of single entry because, you're on an even playing field. Everyone only has one lineup. But when you're playing against these guys who have massive bankrolls and they're playing 150 lineups and you've got one, the chances of you winning are so small. So if you are only going to do one lineup, that's fine. But you are also, make sure you're playing single entries so that you're on the same playing field as the other guys. I would, and I would recommend, go to I think it's called the mini max or something like that. 50-cent entry, 25-cent entries. and just try it out. It's only going to cost you, $3, $5 and build 20 lineups and see what the process is like of building 20 lineups, enter them. Cause you might find out that you like it and it's a more fun way of playing. It's a little bit easier. Like I always do, the 20 lineups and, take some of my favorite stacks tonight and put them together in different combinations. And then when they hit like they did last night, then you have a great night. And when they don't, you have a bad night. But you have to hopefully they hit more often than not. So, if you are a one lineup guy, I would suggest just trying it out with some of those cheaper contests just to see, because, with 20 lineups, even in a 25, 50-cent contest, if one hits, you're still going to get a really good return on your investment. So sticking with Elias Pettersson, asks David, yeah, 100%. I think this is a really great spot to stick with Elias Pettersson because he's so cheap. It's a small slate. So his price on this slate is crazy, and it's a great matchup with bad Ottawa teams. So definitely it's a good spot to stick with him. 6,200 Elias Pettersson it's not going to, you're not going to see that very often this season. So definitely a good spot for him. I really like that, although I got to say, as I recommend them, so this sample that I'm using for the model is going back to last year because the sample size is still too small. But let me just pull up their numbers so far this year. They're terrible. So it is scary. There's definitely risk involved. I'm definitely going to be a little bit, I'm going to have them less exposure to them than I am going to be the Horvat line. But just take a look at these numbers. They're so bad. So it is risky, no question about it. But at the same time, their numbers last year were so good that eventually they're going to come around. So right now their expected goals for 1.37. This is just this year, but it's only a 38-minute sample size. So way too small to really read into it too much, but it's 17 scoring chances for, 32 scoring chances against, only 6 high danger chances, 4 per 60. The numbers are terrible. So there's definitely risk involved in playing them at that price, but the upside definitely outweighs the risk. But just know that they've been bad. And but it takes that a couple power play goals for that line. Even they don't even have to do any crazy damage at 5v5. They all correlate on the power play, and that's kind of what you're paying for tonight. You're paying for the power play correlation and just hoping that they get back on track. But just know that their numbers have been absolute shit all season so far. So I play small and expect to win small. Yeah, and that's fine. One of the best contests, at least for NHL, the $12 single entry is great. I play it every night. It's one of the best lower buy-in contests. I think in any sport, it's the payout's usually around 2,000, which is really nice for first. And you're not playing against these 20,000 guys trying to be. It's usually about 1,000. Or I think last night was 900. Tonight's probably way smaller. Yes, 3 max contests are also really good to try. Yeah, there's not a lot of really good ones in hockey. They have a really nice $20 3 max entry. That's always a good one if you've got that bankroll. But 3 max is good too because it allows you to build a couple of lineups. It allows you to you can make multiple lineups. So you don't have to worry about playing against guys with 150 or 20 lineups. So 3 max are definitely good. When I just started playing NBA this year, and I was getting into a lot of 3 max entries, and it's definitely a good way to start. So, any reliable stats about back-to-backs yet? Nothing yet. It all kind of has been wishy-washy. You see a high-scoring game and then a low-scoring game, and then you have another one where it's Vancouver, Montreal. It's maybe it's going to be low-scoring the second night, and then they combine for 12 goals or something. So, nothing super concrete yet. And we really haven't seen any goalies going on back-to-backs yet this season either. So it's just kind of the nature of the season. But FanDuel will not let me get on. So I am sorry. Maybe I should join FanDuel for you guys that do play, and I can answer some of those questions more reliably in the future. But like I said, anytime these lines pop, even if Van 1's a little bit more expensive on FanDuel, they're still a great play. You just got to find different ways to make them fit in your lineup. I guess I didn't really go through my list of top punt defensemen. Like I said, you're probably not going to have to get too crazy low on the punts tonight. But Alex Edler looks really solid at 4,300. Normally Alex Edler's crazy expensive. He has been banged up this year, but played 22 minutes the other night. Had an assist, 3 shots, 3 blocks. That's kind of what you expect from Alex Edler. You're paying for the shot blocking, and eventually he's going to block a shitload of shots, and his price is going to be really high. So Alex Edler at 4,300 is looking really good. Calvin DeHaan is kind of like a cheap version of Connor Murphy. Blocks a bunch of shots, shoots a couple shots here and there, has put up a couple points so far this year. So if you can't play Connor Murphy or Duncan Keith, if you want to play Pittsburgh, Calvin DeHaan's another cheap option. 3,600, kind of your poor man's version of Connor Murphy right now. Jordy Ben, I mentioned him a little bit earlier, 3,100. He's only played a couple games this year. Blocked 3 shots in each game. He's hit the shot block bonus in both games. So you love to see that. He's definitely one of my favorite punts of the night. Going back, Dante Fabro, he played 20 minutes last night, 2 shots, 2 blocks, decent outing at 3,300. He went down to 2,900. So he's $400 cheaper than he was yesterday. I liked him yesterday, which means I love him tonight. You can play him with any of the Nashville lines. If we go back to this for a second, just to see who he plays the most with. The Forsberg line, if you're playing Nashville 1, Fabro is definitely a terrific option. Doesn't play quite as much with Nashville 2, but Fabro, if you need to get cheap with Nashville 1, definitely a good way of doing that. Outside of him, not a whole heck of a lot. But again, the forward pricing tonight is so reasonable that you're probably not going to have to punt 2 defensemen. You're probably only going to have to do 1. Eric Branson's half decent, but I'm probably not going to get there either. We're coming up on 40 minutes here, so I think that's everything. If that's all the questions you guys have, that is going to be the end of today's Is Kane the best shot at multiple goals? Everyone's got a chance, but he's definitely like one of the most likely. I think that we've definitely seen multiple goals out of guys like Bo Horvat. We've seen multiple goals out of guys, like Brock Besser, JT Miller in the past. Like, I think that somebody in that Vancouver lineup is probably the most likely. UC Saros is an outstanding goalie, so I wouldn't say that Patrick Kane's the most likely, but somebody in Vancouver, that Vancouver game. We saw Brandon Sutter score 3 the other night, so definitely somebody in that Vancouver lineup. But helping me a ton. You're doing God's work, LA. Thanks a lot, Tanner. Appreciate it, man. Okay, I'm heading out. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the show. Make sure you smash that like button. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. If possible, I'm going to try to get on a little bit earlier tomorrow, maybe 5 o'clock. Keep an eye out on Twitter specifically. It just all depends how fast I get through everything else tomorrow. If I can come on a little bit earlier, I would like to. I would like to break down that 14-gamer. Maybe I'll be on for an hour 15 if we can. But keep an eye on Twitter. If I can get on earlier, I'll let you know earlier in the day. So keep an eye out for that. But glad you guys enjoyed the show. Hopefully we win some more money tonight. Best of luck to everybody. We'll see you guys back here for a massive slate tomorrow. Have a good night.